Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our November 15th training session. Again, the bulk of our time today is going to be reviewing the 1095C procedure, okay, which we will go over. Uh, and in December, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be reviewing the health screen, the dependent screen, and the control file area of it. So basically what we're going to do now is just go through the process of setting up the new parameters for the new year, as far as opening up the new year for the 1095C, and all the various items that actually put the data together as far as the 1095C. Okay, so thanks again for joining us, and we're going to start off in the control file. Okay, and this is in the HR. We're going to go into the control file, and on the left-hand side, about halfway down, we have company. Okay, and on the company screen is where you have your demographic information, and these fields are all mandatory, and everybody really should be in place from last year. So unless there's any changes with the contact person, okay, these are the fields that are mandatory: the district name, the street, the city, the state, zip, of course, the phone number, your federal ID number, which we call the IRS number, and the contact first name and contact last name. Okay, so that's all needed. If someone else is going to be responsible for it this year, this is the information that gets sent to the IRS, so this would be the contact person, the response person. Okay, and now hopefully everyone has renewed their registration. It required a change of your passcode. Okay, so hopefully everybody did renew that portion of it. Okay, this is the first screen. Down at the bottom, a little right to center, we have a more info screen for additional information to the company data. And these are the areas that are set up that pertain to the 1095C. Okay, the first item is the base salary. Okay, what this does is this constitutes what does the what salary is used, as far as what portion of the salary is used from the HR to calculate the copay, which appears on the 1095C. Okay, so the mandatory, the standard ones within the district is the salary and the longevity. As far as the extras 1 through 5, it varies from district to district. So this is basically to represent what is your base salary, which means what is the base for pension. You could use that as criteria. Okay, so we have districts that use all 5 of the extras. Some use 1 or 2, some use none. Okay, so this constitutes what is your base salary, which is your salary subject to pension, which is what we calculate copay on. Also, as far as using the parameters. Okay, the bottom area of the screen is the parameters for the 1095C. We have the 1094, 1095C parameters. The 5 radio buttons, okay, is for the 1094C, where they're on the first page of the 1094C. It asks for, is your district qualifying offer method transition relief, section 4980H transition relief, 98% offer method, or the minimum essential coverage offered indicator. Okay, and this was the norm last year, the section 4980 and the minimum essential cover offered. Okay, the next item is what year, what's the default calendar year. And what that means is when you go into the database and you go into 1095C, it's automatically going to default to the new year. So the first thing that you would do is come in here and change the year to 2016. Okay, so that should be your first step. All your other parameters should be in place from last year, so you really shouldn't have to change anything. So you change your year. That would be your first step. Load covered individuals. Some districts are required to load the covered individuals. Some districts are not. So this, again, should be set from your criteria from last year as far as whether you have to report all the covered individuals or not. We have a few districts with this checkbox is saying if I'm loading the covered individuals, ignore it if the enrollment date or the withdrawal date is blank. Just ignore that, because normally we say, hey, you could leave it blank. We assume that they are covered unless you have a withdrawal date in. Okay, so you shouldn't have to change this as far as your parameters from last year. Plain paper forms. We have multiple forms that you could use in the standard, which again should be stuff from last year, is portrait for standard window envelope plain paper. Okay, and you'll notice we have some other options. We have W2 window envelope plain, landscape, landscape duplex. Okay, and then we have if you have a physical pre-printed form. So the standard seems to be the portrait for standard window envelope plain paper, and we do both sides of it as far as the duplexing of it. Okay, this is if you're doing the landscaping, it's a little different as far as the duplexing of it. Okay, and to the right of that, what we have is we have the ability to move the address for your window envelope, because we've dealt with the clients we dealt with last year. We found quite a bit of variables as far as where the window in a window envelope is. Okay, so what this allows you to do is, as an example, the employer portion, if you do have a window with the employer and the employee, the employer portion, the higher the number, this is for down, the higher the number, what it does is it pushes the employer information down, and the higher the number on the right pushes the employer information to the right. So what it does is we don't need separate programs for different windows. You can adjust where the employer information is going to print on the form so it fits directly on your window envelope. If you don't have an employer window, don't worry about it. You can put it anywhere you want. Okay. The employee window setting works the same way. Okay. Where does the employee name and information? The higher the number, the further down it pushes the name and address, and the higher the number on the right pushes it over to the right. So it's pushing the printing information so it fits directly in your window. Okay, so your very first step, again, you should change your year to 2016. Okay, and I'm going to get out of here. Okay, we may change this for next year, but if we go into the database, okay, what you want to do is just click on the Form 1095-C. When you access this form, okay, what it's going to do is it's going to put a row of information in the control file. Okay, what you'll see is then you get out of here, or you can go to the control file from the database, so you don't have to bounce out of the database, and it's on the right-hand side about halfway down, control table. And then you'll go back to the company and the more info, and you'll see a 2016 year set up on the right-hand side of the parameters for the 1094, 1095-C. Again, the first thing you want to do is where you have your 2016 year, you want to set that lock year to no. Okay, and you could copy down your TCC code. You know, you could just do a copy and paste for the time being. We'll set it up so it automatically carries that information over, and we'll take care of the software ID number, because I don't know if they give us a new one every year. We're in the process of a test process. Supposedly you have a test process every year for vendors. They may give us a new software ID number. Who knows? Who knows? Okay, but what this lock does is you want to say, no, the 2016 year is not locked. There's actually two steps after that. Adjustment means you're already done with your mass update, which I'll explain when we go into the 1095-C. So basically that's determined when you print your 1095-Cs. Okay, so let's say that whatever the date is for the cutoff for 2016, which we're not sure if they're going to change anything. Okay, whatever the cutoff date to supply your employees with it, what I would imagine it'll still stay January 31st. That you have to supply it to your employees. Okay, after you print them, you really want to change this to adjustment. And what that'll do is that'll keep you from doing the mass update and changing employees that you don't want to change. Okay. And whenever you're done, which is, basically when you submit the file to the IRS, okay, what you want to do is lock it, and that will not allow you to make any changes for that year on the 1095-C. So you don't have to worry about somebody accidentally changing a 1095-C and changing your data. Okay, but initially you'll see it'll create a year here after you access the 1095-C in the database. You want to make sure that flag says no, and then copy down the rest of this information. Okay, and that's all that's needed in the control file for the 1095-C as far as the company. Of course, you have your plans that have to be rolled over, whether you were fiscal or calendar. At some point in time, you're going to create the new plans. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the database. Okay, so that took care of the control file. So you can exit out of the control file and you can access the database at this particular point. Okay, and I'm going to bring up my employee that I usually work with. And of course, the 1095-C is going to be looking at the health screen, okay, the health screen information, and also the dependent screen information as far as accumulating data for the 1095-C. That's how the data gets accumulated through the health, dependents, and of course the employee screen. Okay, the next area that we have, which we had last year, we're just recapping this, is in the lower left-hand corner of the database, we have employment type 1095-C. What this is for is it determines whether or not that employee is getting a 1095-C. Okay, and the way we have it right now is a full-time employee gets a 1095-C, a full-time employee equivalent gets a 1095-C, a part-time does not, okay, and a part-time offered health means you do have an hourly employee where, for whatever reason, where they work the amount of hours, the minimum hourly base for the federal government or the district decided to give these employees health coverage. This is a part-time employee, but they were offered health. And non-applicable is no, they're not getting it. They're not applicable to a 1095-C at all. Okay. Now, what we do on this is whenever the status changes, like I'll use this as an example, I'll change the employee to part-time. Let's say they retired and they came back as a part-time employee. What it does is it asks you for a date. Okay, when did that employee start working as a part-time employee? Okay, so what I'll do here is I'll make it a 2015 date. I'll say they worked to July 31st or whatever. Let's do June 1st. Nope. June 30th, 2015. Okay, so they became part-time employee at that particular point. Okay, and what that does, that information is actually getting stored. If you press the H for history button to the right of that down arrow, you'll actually see this information being built. Like this employee was full-time from January through July 2015. Okay. July 20th, 2015, they became part-time, okay? And as you change that, it builds a row of information, okay, which you can add and delete. This is not an audit, but this is a controlling area on what type of employee was that for what period of time. So when they switch, we need to know if someone was part-time and they became full-time halfway through the year. Well, we need to know that. We need to know when did they start, when they start became a full-time or part-time. Okay, so you can manage your screen accordingly. Okay, so now I'll go back. I'll make that employee full-time because that's usually the one I do. Let's say August 01, 2016, 2015. Just change it back. I do my update. And you notice as it doesn't update, it inserts a row on the screen. okay, which can be deleted if for some reason it was bogus. You say, hey, somebody changed the wrong employee and they added these two pieces of information. You could physically just delete these rows out of here. You could do an add if you wanted to add prior information without changing the employee status, or you could just delete the data from the screen. And the 1095-C is looking at this information to determine whether they were part-time or full-time for that particular time period. Okay. That takes care of that. And again, other than this, the health screen and the dependent screen, of course, it looks at the HR salary for that period of time. What were their salary from the salary screen? That's how it determines the, I'm sorry, that's how it determines the copay on the 1095-C. Okay. And if we go now, we're going to go to the 1095-C. This employee is full-time. This is the 1095-C screen. I did do an update so you can see how it looks. Okay, I'm going to review all the procedures and reports, and then I'll review the 1095-C as how you're able to modify it and make whatever changes you need. Okay, and you'll notice my year is on the is at 2016. You can always go back to the previous year. Okay, if you notice, I have 16, 15. So if you wanted to look at an employee, you could change the year and look at that information for the 2015 year if you wanted to. Again, you should have it locked. Okay, so you don't accidentally make any changes. All right, and I'm going to work with the drop down, and we'll just do one at a time. Okay, our first one is the detailed health benefits. And I should have some data in here where it prints. I don't have too many that have the 1095-C. And I do think we're able to print here. I keep forgetting. I only use this computer once or twice a month. Come on. I think we're stuck in limbo. Here it comes, slow-mo. All right, so what I'll do is I won't go through these reports. This is a 2010 computer, and it's a little, you know, it takes a little longer to run everything on this one. I don't know why. Okay, so what we have here is, this is just giving you basic information. Is giving you the health information as far as what plans are going to be included on the 1095-C. Okay, and basically it's preliminary. What kind of information do they have on the health screen? So it is really the health benefits report. It's coming from, so it's not looking at anything on the 1095-C. It's just looking at the health and dependent screen for information. Okay, so this is more like a health report, a health screen report, just to give you an idea what you have out there. All right, that was the detailed health benefits report. The next one is the Bill 1095-C data analysis. Okay, we put this out at the very end of last year. This particular process does not change any information on this screen. Okay, so what this will do for you, and again, this might take a while, but I did want you to see it. That's not the one I want. I want the analysis. Okay, so this is a data analysis, and basically it's going to come up with information. Okay, depending on the button that you select. All right, so we have the first button is employees with no data on 1095-C screen. Okay, so what this will do is if you press this button, it'll show you any employees that have no data on a 1095-C at all. So something is missing. They're full-time, but there's something. They don't have, obviously, probably what will happen is they don't have anything on the health screen. If there's nothing on the health screen, there's nothing to load in the 1095-C. The second one is employees with all months not defined on the 1095-C screen. Okay, on the 1095-C, if you notice, we have our for all 12 months, which is fine, but we have the 12 months, January through December. Well, they all have to be populated. Every month, okay, has to be populated. So we're going to go back to that report again. And one of the things that we do is if you notice here that by default they're all checked off. And what this does is this would automatically fill the date of hire, okay, the date of hire to the first plan, health date, or waived, or opt out. Okay, so what happens is, let's say we had a new employee start September 1st. Well, what this will do is it will automatically make them represent a code on a 1095-C, not employed through the end of August. Okay, so what this would do is it would have the appropriate code for January through August that the employee was not employed by the district. And then from that point forward, it will show the 1095-C status as far as the employment. Automatically filled not employed. I'm sorry, this is the waiting period. I'm sorry. I did the wrong one. The waiting period is if an employee gets hired and by the time they get health insurance, it's 60 days or 30 days. That's the waiting period. Okay, so this would automatically fill the waiting period using the date of hire. So if their date of hire is, let's say, September 1st, and they don't get coverage to October 15th, okay, well, that's the waiting period, the September through October 15th. And I'm sorry. And then the second one is not employed, where from January 1st to the date of hire, termination date through December 31st. Okay, this is where the second one is what does the filling of not employed. So if an employer was hired September 1st, this would automatically fill January 1st through the end of August as not employed. Or if someone leaves, someone retires June 30th, okay, what this will do is define the employee as not employed from their withdrawal date on their health plan to December 31st. And why would you want to do it? Why would you want to do it manually? This will do it automatically with autofill. Okay, so if we run this, hopefully this doesn't take too long because it's just looking at the 1095-C information. Nah, this does build the data too. It's coming up a lot quicker though. So you can actually see it. Okay, so I did the first option, which was employees with no data on 1095-C, and it'll show you the employee, and it shows you that there's no data being imported into the 1095-C. And if we do the employees with all 12 months not defined, this should run pretty fast, I would imagine, too. I don't know if we have this scenario. I didn't get time to check. I ran out of time, as always. Okay, we do have some scenarios. Okay, and what this does is it's showing you any employee that doesn't have data from January through December. If you notice, this one person has just 1 month defined. The second employee just has 3 months. The third employee has the 11 months, January through November, and nothing defined for December. Okay. And again, this was something we did towards the end of the year last year, so a lot of you might not have been aware of it as you were processing your 1095-Cs, but you should have it all in place now. And again, this does not affect anything on the screen. It doesn't build, it doesn't modify. This again is just an analysis, which is basically just giving you errors on what would happen. It simulates a posting, doesn't post anything, and then it analyzes to see any missing data, whether it be the for the waiting period or not employed, which will autofill, but anything else in between that. Okay. All right, so that was our second one. We went over the health benefits, the analysis. The third one is the actual building of the data. Okay, this is what builds the 1095-C information. Okay, and just let me give you an example of the control file. so you can actually see what I'm referring to. Okay, this way you can actually get an idea on what it does. Okay, if you notice, when I come into this program, this gives me the ability to do the Bill 1095-C. This is a mass update. It's doing every employee. Okay, so if you fix something, you're going through here, which is fine. You bill the employee. All right. Now, if we define a control file, and I have to exit out as I go through this. If we define it as an adjustment period, okay, which means I've already printed all my 1095-Cs, okay? So they all went out, and what I want to do now is if I find any mistakes, I only want to change the employees that have mistakes. So if you go into your Build 1095-C, you'll see it'll come up with a different screen where you're doing individual employees. Okay, so when you run this, it's not touching anybody, any other employee but the employee that you selected. So you did your mass printing of 1095-Cs. You can keep this list on here so you know exactly, because it'll save it if I get out and I go back in. Okay, you'll notice it saves it. So you could keep a track of the ones that needed to be fixed before you send the file to the IRS. Okay, and if I now go back into my control file again, and if I change it to yes, it's locked. Okay, if I try to do anything in there, it'll tell me that it's locked. Okay, it says the year is locked and it just bounces out. You won't be able to change anything on this screen either. So it's locking the data at that particular point. Now, if you find mistakes after this and you need to get into it to adjust another employee for whatever reason, well, you can just go in there and adjust your control table to give you the ability to go back there and make adjustments. Okay, so you're in control of this. Once you lock it, doesn't mean you could never go back in there if you needed to. Okay, excuse me. I'm going to go back to my database. Okay, so this is the actual updating. It updates this screen. So if you go out there, like in the beginning, you could just run it for everybody. If you find mistakes, which if you use that analysis, you really should clean up a lot of the mistakes. Employees with no data, okay, employees with gaps or nothing on the 1095-C. So it doesn't hurt doing this. If you want to do this, that's fine. You know what I mean? It's not a problem. But the analysis is actually coming up with all the errors for you, so you know that there's a problem, you know, without having to look at everyone separately. But this, you would just run it, which I did earlier, and it populates your lines 14, 15, and 16. And if you are required to include your covered individuals, it will populate the bottom of the screen. If you're not, then it won't populate anything at the bottom of the screen. All right, and then we go to the next item, which is the 1095-C. And this is basically, instead of printing a full page 1095-C for each employee, excuse me, a little drink. Instead of printing a full page 1095-C for every employee, this will give you a list that's a lot shorter. It'll give you the data for line 14, 15, and 16. Sorry. And it'll also give you the covered individuals for each employee. Okay, so it makes it a lot shorter. So if you wanted to do a hard copy to go down and look at the information, it's a short version of the 1095-C. Okay, and then we have the print 1090, the actual printing of the form, the 1095-C, and it should be the same way you did it last year. Okay, if you were happy with it, and I think most of our clients, they did the portrait duplex printer where it printed it on both sides. So printed your 1095-C covered individuals and the legend at the back page of the 1095-C. And this shouldn't take that long. It's all right. It'll give me a little break on that. Should be coming up shortly. Here we go. Okay, and this is your 1095C. I just want to move this a little bit to get to the bar. You know, and I'm sure most of our clients did this would be your front part. It's meant to print on the duplex printer. So it prints on both sides of the paper. So this would be the top of the page. If we go to our next page, that would be the bottom of the page, which will give you the instruction information, then additional, if you had any additional covered individuals, which there's quite a few. There's very rare that you should have there because they give you the ability to do 6 because you have the employer also and then the covered individual. So if you have more than 6, that's when it utilizes the back side of the page to print the rest of them. And again, in the control file, you do have the ability of changing the format. If for some reason you wanted to print the portrait one, which is a lot bigger, okay, that's really up to you how you want to handle that. So, okay, because the norm does seem to be the one we just showed on the screen. Because if you go in there, this was what gives you the ability to do the portrait W2 window envelopes. That's if you have the W2 windows, you know, but you could do your landscape, single-sided, duplex, and the pre-printed form. So this is what controls what physically prints as a 1095C. Okay, so this is the 1095C. The 1094C, we're going to finish off. We never finished it. We started working on it at the end when we were submitting the files. But just to give you an idea, we'll actually have one set up for January, the reporting period in January, where you'll be able to do a hard copy 1094C. The first page we just left blank is basically we wanted to calculate some numbers as far as what the detailed information of the 1094C looks like. You know, it's on the file. Everything is fine with the files that we submit. This is if you wanted a hard copy for whatever reason. If you wanted to send in a hard copy or just for your review, you'll have that capability. Okay, that's the 1094C, which we've done. All right. This is our build ACA file and reports. Okay, and we'll have this all documented. We did document some stuff with this procedure with everyone last year, you know, but we'll set up again. We'll have a video of it, and also this webinar will have the information. Again, basically creating the 1095C, you build your 1095C. Then you have to enter the information that you need for the manifest file, and this builds the manifest file. If you remember from last year, when you upload, you're uploading 2 files. You're actually uploading the form file and the manifest file when you upload to the IRS, which is, that procedure is staying the same. The one thing we're going to have available for the 2016 year is you'll be able to do a test upload prior to submitting your live file, and we'll go over that in December. Okay, actually go through the actual website. So it's a test scenario. It's not a live update. So you're able to upload this file, and not sure how long it's going to take before you get your results, but it'll actually give you error results before you submit the live file. Okay, so you don't have to worry about, hey, this is a replacement file, because one of the things that we do is once you send a live file, it's considered the original, and then after that it's a replacement. You have to note that's a replacement. You have to give the receipt ID of the replacement. So the test scenario will make it a lot easier, where you don't have to worry about any of this because it's a test. There's no such thing as an original and a replacement. So you'll be able to check it out, see who has errors, and then be able to fix it, do another test. You can do as many tests as you want. So we'll go through the process for that. okay, which will require everything else here. You still have to have a UUID number, the checksum, the byte size, but it's a test scenario just to be able to get back errors. Okay, so that allows us to build a file. The next item that we have after the build file is we have check errors on IRS file. Okay, and again, we'll go over this in December and January, you know, early in January. We'll do the December and it'll be on video, so you'll be able to go through this. What happens is when you go to the website and you get the results, you submit your test file and you get the results, well, the results don't tell you anything. You know what I mean? It doesn't tell you who the employee is. Okay, it does tell you what the error is, but it doesn't give you an employee name. It doesn't give you an employee social. It gives you a record ID number. Okay, well, good does that do you? You know what I mean? Now you got to go back and try to figure out who the employee was. Okay, and you know, what does that do for you? All right, so we have this particular program where at the, whether it's the live or the test area, you're able to download a file from the IRS of all the errors, okay? And that's where we ask you select the error file from the IRS. So you get errors, you download this, you upload this file to your computer, okay? And you still need your original file too. So what you do here is you would select the error file that you just uploaded from the IRS, and it would populate the first area. Then it asks you to select the 1095-C file that you uploaded to the IRS. Okay, this is from the IRS, the errors. This is the file that you submitted to the IRS, and then you run the program, and we give you a nice report that tells you the employee name, their social if you wanted to. It asks if you want to print the social. It'll give you the ID number, and it'll show you the error that's on there. Okay, so this will combine those two files and give you a legible report that you don't have to go crazy trying to figure out who the error was. Okay, and of course we have the ability of creating a text file. I think we added that on most of our reports for the 1095-C. All right, so this is the checking file. So again, you'll be able to do this during the test process. You'll be able to build your ACA file, upload it through the test module. When you get errors, you can upload that file to your computer and run it through the check errors for the IRS, okay, which will give you a lot of flexibility. Okay, employer verification letter. Okay, and this is up to the individual employees. What this will allow you to do is, if you run this particular report, this is for sending out to your employees to verify the covered individuals, okay? Or if they don't have covered individuals, to verify the plan that they have, you know what I mean? The coverage that they have. And this is, I think, just one page. Okay, this is just one particular page, and it would list if they have covered individuals. It would list the covered individuals, if they had the social, if they had a date of birth. Okay, so this is just to verify that yes, this is correct. I was covered the whole year, or this particular dependent only shows us 6 months, but we're covered the whole year. They would respond back of any problems that they might see as far as the 1095-C. I think we're towards the tail end of this. State health plan verification. Okay, the next one is the state health plan verification, and this only applies to districts that are under the state health plan. What the state does is they're able to supply you with a file of all the employees with all their covered individual information, you know, whether you need to do it, you know, whether you need to do it for the, if you have state coverage, you have to send the covered individuals. The state is not doing it, so you have to send it. And what this gives you ability to do, again, you go to the state website, you're able to create a file, okay, and you can upload that file to your computer, and the first step would be to load the state health plan file, all right? And then we have the ability to validate the employee information as far as, hey, you have an employee on file that's not on the state file, or vice versa. There's an employee on the state file that's not on your system as far as health benefits. The dependent comparison, and that's also for comparing dependents. You have different dependents, or you have a different social for the dependents, or a different date of birth. This validates the dependent information. And then we have our covered individual comparison, months defined, okay, because the state does know how many months, not how many months, but this individual, this covered individual was had benefits in January, February, March, so we compare it to our system to make sure that they're covered for the months that the state has them covered for, which is a nice tool, because if you're on a state plan, it validates that their data matches yours, which before the 1095C, you really never checked, you know what I mean, to make sure that everybody that you had covered on the state were physically being employed. Wasn't where somebody left and they were never deactivated from the state, or vice versa. You know what I mean? They were activated on the state, but you never filled in the information on your system. Okay, so this again, this is only for districts that are on the state health plan. And then I think our last one, because anything after that is just for our testing purposes with the IRS. Then the last one is payroll system comparison. Okay, and what this is for is to let you know that every employee that gets a W-2, excluding hourly employees and anybody that's not getting coverage. Okay, if you have a lot of hourly employees, it's gonna come up on the list. But this will basically tell you we might add some options this year. It was only used for one particular client, and believe it or not, they had like 2 hourly employees. Everybody else was under contract. Okay, we might make some changes to this word to give you the ability to exclude certain departments. So if you have a lot of hourly employees, you can exclude them from this. And basically, this was to check that everybody that was getting a W-2 was also getting a 1095C, which is a good tool, you know what I mean? Because if you happen to miss 10, where your W-2 count was 10 more than your 1095C, it would tell you, hey, you know, what's the matter with these employees? They got a W-2 but no 1095C form. Okay, so this is a nice tool, and as we go on, we'll expand it to make it, you know, functional for other districts that do have hourly. You know, that's where our 1095C flag could come in. You know, employment type 1095C, we can always exclude anyone that's hourly. Just going back into that screen again. Okay, and that was the last of our reports for the state, and then a comparison. These are just us for testing. Supposedly we'll go through a test every year where you have to submit different test scenarios, and that's what this is here, to build Edu-Met scenario 3, 4, 5, and 7. That's the ones that primarily deals with the schools. Okay, so that's the end of all our procedures and reports on the 1095C. Okay, and everybody should be familiar with the screen previous. And next, you have your find bys, you have your audit. Okay, on this particular screen, you can always do things manually. If for some reason you don't know what it is, you can't figure it out, but you want to be able to change the data on the 1095C. This is where you would do it by hitting Part 2 override screen. And what this will allow you to do is change anything that you want. Okay, let's say for whatever reason, the month of December, you wanted to use a different code. Instead of a 1B, you want to use 2C. Okay, once you do an exit, okay, if you notice, it changed it to a 2C. I'm sorry, a 1C. All right, and of course, by doing that, it affected all these other ones, because I'll go over the all 12-month scenario, okay, with you. And once you make any kind of changes, you'll notice a green box come up to the left of it. So that's telling you there is something in here, okay? There is something on the change screen. if we exit out. Okay, so that's our 1099. Now if we take it out, okay, which you can make it blank. I believe you can uncheck it. I would do both. You have to uncheck it because we don't know if you want to change it to a blank or not. So what happens is when you remove that change, let's say you made it by mistake, and you exit back, we return back to what the original data was, okay, for that. So we don't lose what was there before. Okay, so when you make a change, it saves what this original was. Internally, we're saving it. We made this plan on the bottom of the screen, just that we're limited in size as far as. So it knows that, hey, before this change, this is what the 1095C looked like. Because you notice just that one change affected that whole 14 column. Okay, all righty. And let me go over this because I know we had some of our clients that really didn't understand the relationship between the months January and December and the column all 12 months, okay? What the all 12 months means is if the code in January through December are all exactly the same, then don't put anything on January through December, just put it in all 12 months. This is saying all 12 months were the same code, okay? All 12 months were the same code, because if you notice, if I change this again, if I change this, it changes it around now because this is all 12 months are not the same anymore, so it doesn't put the data in all 12 months, and you'll see January through December is not all the same code. So if the same code is in all 12 months, leave the months blank, just put it in all 12 months. If you notice, if I take it out again, okay, get out of here. So now it reverts back to what it was before, and before there was a 1B going across all the 12 months. The same thing with line 15, okay? If the copay on the cheapest plan is all the same for 12 months, then put it in all 12 months and leave this all zeros, okay? But with most of the districts, your salaries are based on a fiscal basis. This is going to change. Okay, so when you get a new salary July 1st, if you notice here, the salary from January to June was 260, the calculation was 267. Come July, it went to 316. So for the copay on the minimum cost plan is not all the same. So you leave that zero and you put the information for each of the months. If we go to 2A, that was all the same, so it doesn't put it into 12 months. So it's either or. You're never going to have this checked and anything checked here on any of the scenarios, because that's what it's saying. All 12 months were the same. Don't show it on the months, just show it in the column all 12 months. This goes on the 1095C, it goes on the file that way, okay? So that's what all 12 months means, that from January through December, it's always the same code from January through December. It's always the same copay. So if it's different, that's not going to be checked. The months are going to be done. Okay, the same thing with the bottom one. If I change the 2A, I make the last month 2D, you'll see the same thing. It'll break out. It's not all the same. Going across, they change. Okay, so that's the scenario for, and then if we go back, it'll change it back again. And that's a scenario for all 12 months versus the January through December. Okay, and I think we pretty well covered everything except the upload, which again, maybe we'll do it in January. We'll do a webinar, so at least you can always, go through the process. But the important part is you make sure that whoever registered for last year, that when they got the notice from the IRS that they required you change your passcode or it was going to cancel the registration, you needed to do that. If you forgot to do that or if you never saw the email, you want to check because you may not have access to upload the file come January, whatever the time frame. We're not sure what the time frame is going to be. Okay. So at that point, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unmute everyone. Sorry, I hit the wrong thing. Unmute. Okay, so I just unmuted everyone. Does anyone have any questions on what we just stepped through? No? I hear some noise, so that's good. That means you heard my voice all that while. So nothing at all? Okay.
Oh, it's good.
Thank you. And, you'll be able to work with them. We're always available for any questions that you have. If you don't want to call, you can always shoot me an email, dan@edumet.com, if you have any questions as you go through the process. And we'll make it better this year. We'll start working on it to make it better this year than it was last year. And I'm sure in the future we'll make it easier. And learning that test scenario is really a big plus, because you don't have to wait to say, okay, here's my live file. I wonder if there's any errors. You'll be able to run it through the test scenario, and you'll know right away if there's any kind of errors. Okay. No questions?
Dan?
Okay. Sure. Who's this?
Hi, this is Sherry from Richmond Public Schools.
Hi, Sherry. How are you?
Good. I just had a quick question on, like, when somebody resigns and their insurance ends, let's say it ends the end of February, and those March through December, do we still have to put a code in there, or does it stay blank?
The system will do that. That's what the system's going to do for you. You have to have a plan type for, here, let me show you. I'll show you because we were going to go over this next month. If we go into, no, that's all right. If we go into the plan types, one of the types that we have is not employed.
Oh, okay.
All right, so I think we actually have the plan. You should have a plan, not employed. If we don't, well, we can add it. You know what I mean? We'll add it. I don't even have it on. Oh, here we go. Not employed. You should have a plan, because what happens is a not employed has certain codes. Like it has a code for box 14, no dollar amount is required, and a code for box 16. Okay, so if you want to make sure you have this in place, and again, email me or call if you want to review it. Okay, once you have this plan, we do it automatically. Like that's what this does. Just so you understand, because some of you say, well, I'm really not sure what he's talking about. When we go into the analysis or the update, like if we go into the analysis, this does it automatically. Okay.
Oh, okay.
This does it automatically. So if an employee, for whether they left or whether they became part-time, let's say their plan was dropped as of the end of February. Okay. You're gonna put in a termination date of February. That's when they left. You know what I mean? That's when they physically left. That's what this would do. It would look at their withdrawal date, and it says, okay, the withdrawal date is whatever, February 28th, February 29th. And what it would do is it would put that code in from March all the way to December. It would put that non-employed code. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, if they're switching from full-time or part-time, then that's the non-eligible. You know what I mean? Where they're not eligible, you would actually change the status on their screen that they were not eligible. But we would do that automatically. That's why, like I said in the beginning, I think last year they were very easy on what came through, the data everybody sent. But I'm sure this year they're going to become more critical on the data. Every month has to be filled in. The employee was covered from January through February. Well, what about March through December? What is it? You know what I mean? So that code represents that, hey, they're not employed any longer. You know what I mean? And the same thing when you hire somebody. That's what this does. It does both ways. So let's say you had an employee that was hired July 1st, okay? Well, we're going to put not employed from January 1st through June 30th. We're going to put the non-employed. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. Anybody else?
A quick question. This is Donna from Verona.
Hi, Donna. How are you?
Do you know when we have to send these out, like to the employers and
to
the
employees? You have to get it out by January 31st.
Okay, so that's still almost like the same as the W-2s then?
Yes, because I believe that was last year they pushed it back for everybody because it was the first year. You know what I mean? But you're supposed to do it. It's going to be follow the same guidelines as the W-2. So January 31st. Okay, and I don't
Thank you.
remember. Yeah, I don't remember. I think they did push it back. They pushed it all back last year. But
We
it's
had till like
supposed to be.
March, the end of March.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be when you get their W-2s, they're supposed to get this also. Okay. And the file, I'm not sure what the cutoff is going to be. We'll find out as we go down. Okay, Donna?
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, there's been some changes down the road. Again, we'll go over the IRS. Basically the W-2s, because I'm not sure what the 1095-C when the file has to be submitted to the IRS. But with the W-2 file, okay, last year we had till the end of February to submit the file to the IRS. Well, starting in 2016, you have to submit the file by January 31st. Okay, so it's the same date as when you have January 31st, by January 31st to submit the W-2s to the employees. The file has to also be submitted before January 31st. Okay, where it's going to put a lot of districts in crunch time because they were used to having that that month of February to find out any problems, and they were able to fix it before they sent the file, so they didn't have to send the revised W-2 to the IRS. Now you have to send a file at the end of January. So if you find any errors after January, then you have to file I think they call it a W-2, a W-3 or something like that. I think they call it W-3. Okay, so it's gonna make it a crunch, and the reason behind it is, I wasn't aware of this myself, that the IRS will not process your return. Like say you had money coming back, they will not process your return until they get the information from the employer, and that's the reasoning behind it. Okay, so basically, if somebody filed a return on the first day of whatever, the last day of January or at any point after they got their W-2 and they were getting a refund, where they would have to wait until the employer information was submitted to the IRS before. I guess a small refund they wouldn't, but if you had like a large refund, they wait till they get the information from the employer. So now they're saying, hey, we need your information as of January 31st. Okay. With the 1095-C, I don't know what they're doing with that file because the 1095-C doesn't involve a return, but the whole idea was if you don't have health insurance, we're going to give you a penalty. So we're not sure about the cutoff date for the 1095-C files to the IRS. We'll find, as soon as we find out, we'll let everybody know. Okay, so that's one change. And the other change is that the state of New Jersey and Pennsylvania, as far as I know, I don't know about Delaware, but New Jersey and Pennsylvania, they no longer have a reciprocating agreement with state tax. And what that basically means for a district is if you have an employee that lives in Pennsylvania, what you're doing currently is you're either having them pay New Jersey or you have them pay just PA. Well, starting July 1st, 2017, any employee from Pennsylvania that works in New Jersey has to pay New Jersey state tax. Okay, so they all have to be switched to New Jersey, okay, because it's mandatory that you're an employer. Everybody has to pay New Jersey state tax, whether they're from, you have to from New Jersey, but if they're from Pennsylvania, they also have to pay the New Jersey income tax. Okay, another layer that they added was that if the employee from Pennsylvania wanted to take out two taxes, one from the state of New Jersey, which is mandatory, but if they wanted to take an optional one and also have PA state tax come out at the same time, if the employee is offering it, the employer will have that capability of doing that. Okay, and basically what we're going to do on the state tax screen is we're going to have a second column. We're going to have, this is going to be our default a first default, which should be all New Jersey, and then we're going to have a second one to the right of this, all this information, except the New Jersey state tax table, because if you're out of state, you know what I mean, you're not going to be using, they're not going to be, if you're paying Pennsylvania tax, if you notice, PA, there's no such thing as a tax table, you know, so it wipes out. Okay, so we'll have this information to the right of it, which was basically your second state tax. Okay, and again, you say why you have them do that. Well, if they don't, if you don't take out Pennsylvania tax, they have to file quarterly tax statements to the state. You know what I mean? Because they got paid, they have earnings, so they have to submit that. The actual employee would have to do that every quarter, sorry. Okay, so we'll also be making that particular change. Okay, to accommodate that, because we have quite a few districts that are along the Pennsylvania border where we have one district that has 100 employees from PA, and I'm sure some of them are going to, you know, we already have a few that said yes, they want both taxes taken out, so we'll be taking care of that. You can't do anything with this until January 1st, until you roll over, because we don't want to start putting it out there now and you make a mistake and you start taking it out early. So this will be something that'll be uploaded in January, and we'll make sure it doesn't conflict with your payrolls. Okay, other than that, I think that's about it. Anybody, any of our attendees have any questions about anything else? Doesn't matter what application or anything?
I do. This is Donna from Verona again.
Sure.
Okay, I have a employee that lives in Pennsylvania. So if I just did the New Jersey state and not the Pennsylvania, so would the Pennsylvania state be on her?
Yes.
She would have to do the quarterly?
Yes, she would have to submit it quarterly, yes. Yes. Okay. But so we're going to give you that. We're going to give you that tool. You don't have to do that if you don't want. You know what I mean? Anything out of state is all optional. You know what I'm saying?
But she could do both through me, correct?
Yeah. We'll have that ability where it'll take two state taxes. It'll take New Jersey state tax, and it'll also take Pennsylvania state tax. Okay. So they don't have to worry about doing that quarterly. You know what I mean? When they file. And I could send out, matter of fact, I didn't send it out. I'll send out a circular to everyone. There's a little bulletin from Pennsylvania that's real nice. It explains the whole thing. So instead of picking everybody, I'll send that out to everybody via email, so they can have it, and it explains that. You know what I mean? Okay. But again, it's not mandatory. You know, as an employer in New Jersey, the only thing that's mandatory for you to take New Jersey, which now Pennsylvania employees have to pay New Jersey. So now that becomes mandatory for the employer. That second piece, that's basically up to the employer. If they want to do that, we'll have the capability. If they say, no, we don't have that capability, I don't want to be bothered, that's fine too. You know what I mean? We don't care whether you use it or not. So, all righty. All right, Donna, that good?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Anything? Okay, and I did send out emails about a week and a half ago telling everyone that all the webinars that we have will be posted on YouTube. Okay, so we'll have this up by tomorrow. Okay, whether it's in the morning or the afternoon, but we'll have it on YouTube the following day. Okay, and you'll see it'll have today's date, and it'll note webinar. You know, today, November 15th, and then it'll note webinar. So if you wanted to go back and review it, you can go download the video, or you could just view it right on the website. Okay, and if you didn't, you should have got it. Everybody that, you know, I emailed everybody that we have connections with as far as constant contact and email. Okay, it has a YouTube link that'll take you right to our folder with our info. They call it a channel. We have a link that'll take you to the Edu-Met channel, and it'll list all the videos that we post. Okay, so if there's no other questions, thank you very much for joining us. And if you have any questions, again, email me, dan@edumet.com, or you can call us at the 732 number. I sent that all out also. Okay, and thank you very much for joining us. Take care. Bye-bye.